You're listening to the Lynchburg Hornets Sports Podcast, a podcast about Lynchburg sports.
The Lynchburg Hornets Sports Podcast, a podcast about Lynchburg sports. My name's Tim LaDuca, and we've got Jennifer Releford, or I guess Jenni Releford. I don't know why I call her Jennifer, but head field hockey coach here at Lynchburg on the podcast today, talking about winning. Just a pretty broad topic, and get into how to win, what winning's like, how you can create a winning culture on your team. And we also have Riley Mitchell from the Lynchburg men's lacrosse team. I will have to say, during the podcast episode, during the interview that we recorded in January, I knew this episode was going to be coming out during the lacrosse season. And so I just went out, I didn't know at the time, went out on a limb and said, it's been fun watching you play so far this season, Riley. But unfortunately, after recording that episode, Riley did sustain an injury and missed most of the beginning of the season. He's back. He's scored 2 goals and 4 assists so far in the 2 games he's played, which were against Hamilton and Stevenson. So I guess I really technically wasn't incorrect by saying it was fun watching you play so far this season, Riley, because he has played so far, but just not a full season that we were expecting so far out of the All-American. But he's back, looking healthy, already scoring points. Scored his 100th career goal. Him and Jake Rust have scored their 100th career goal so far this season. So we talked to Riley, we talked to Coach Releford about winning on this episode of the Lynchburg Hornets Sports Podcast, a podcast about Lynchburg sports. All right, we're here with Riley Mitchell with the men's lacrosse team here at Lynchburg. Riley, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So I grew up as a baseball player. I think we're relatively similar in age. I graduated college a few years ago, but it seemed like when I was growing up, that's really the divide where lacrosse started really making an impact. You were deciding in the spring you're going to be a baseball player or you're going to play lacrosse. So tell me about why you ended up choosing lacrosse.
Yeah, so I played t-ball when I was little, and I'm the type of person who likes to be moving a million miles an hour. My first year of t-ball, I kept sliding into every base possible, and I got kicked out of my first game at the age of 4. My dad said, let's find something a little bit more fast-paced so you can run as much as you would like to, and we were like, all right, let's start playing some lacrosse, and that was the end of that story. That was the beginning of it all.
Were you always, a scorer playing midfield, or did you switch positions around? Like crazy goalie for some part of your years for some reason?
So, fun fact, you actually nailed it. Yeah. I did play goalie for a while. So I started out as an attackman. My older brother was a midfielder. I always played up with my older brother's team. It's where I got the nickname Peanut growing up because I was always way smaller than people. But I was obsessed with scoring goals, obviously, and then I started watching more college lacrosse and thought the goalies were really cool. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to play goalie. My dad let me dabble in it a little bit. But as I got older, I wanted to play more goalie, and he basically told me no because he said, you're going to miss scoring goals. Mm-hmm. And he was a soccer goalie growing up, was committed to play soccer in college, and then ended up moving states and not playing. But he had a lot of understanding of what it is like to be a goalie, and he was just like, you are going to miss scoring goals. Mm-hmm. You also have more of an opportunity to prove yourself. There's more positions, and you're too quick and exciting on an offensive standard to watch to not be there.
So when did college become a possibility for you?
So
playing lacrosse, not just going to school after high school.
It was interesting because the age that I was at, the recruiting was really prevalent, was just about in 7th, 8th grade. So 8th grade, some kids were starting to make big D1 commitments, and I wanted to be patient, and I wanted to really look at my options. I was talking to some teams as an 8th grader, but then the rules changed, and we had to wait till we were older, which I think is a smart idea because a lot of people make those decisions early, and most of those people end up moving. But yeah, about 8th grade is when that recruiting process started, going to tournaments, and you're 14 years old with D1 coaches lined up on a sideline. It's a weird but interesting experience. I always knew I wanted to play college lacrosse. I thought maybe for a little bit I would want to wrestle in college, but they told me I had to lose weight. Lacrosse coach told me I had to gain weight, and I thought gaining weight sounded cooler, so that was lacrosse was definitely the way to go for me, and it was a huge help at least just getting into college.
Coach Kudelka's going into 28th year of coaching, I believe. There's a lot of coaches here, 20 plus years, so whenever I get the chance to talk to one of these legendary coaches, it's really exciting. Do you remember your first interaction with Coach Kudelka, and what do you remember about him trying to get you to come to Lynchburg?
So my older brother went to Lynchburg. He graduated in 2021, so when I was a freshman, he was a junior. When he first got recruited and came to Lynchburg, Coach K kind of put a heavy press on me because he loves to recruit brothers. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I would come and visit my older brother just to see him and whatnot. And Coach K always seemed to find out when I was on campus and would shoot me a text. He's like, come talk to me. And he pushed pretty heavy, and it wasn't that I didn't want to go to Lynchburg or had anything against the program. I just didn't know if at the time I wanted to follow my brother's footsteps, which is interesting because he is my best friend. We're unbelievably close. But the more I talked to Coach, the more I spent time on this campus, I knew this is where I wanted to be. And Coach K was very good at pushing me, but pushing me in a way that I would know I would fit in here and I would love it here.
A big draw to this school athletically, especially, I believe, is the possibility of winning, and these teams have national championship aspirations every year across the board. What was the conversation from Coach Kudelka about if you come here, the wins and losses are going to look a little bit like this?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that he pushes on in that recruiting process is if you want to go to a good school and win games, this is where you want to be. Mm-hmm. We don't shy away from good teams. We will play any top 10 team we possibly can. Example, we had a team who's not playing this season anymore, so we had a spot open up, and coaches went in, looked for who is a top 10 team who has free time in this spot, and let's find one of the best teams we can to play, which is quite nice because our team loves winning, but we hate losing even more. Mm-hmm. It is very important to us of big games and big wins. It's just all the effort that we put in. You want to be on a program and around people who want to win and will do what it takes to win, and that's what we've built here.
You've been on 2 ODAC championship teams so far.
Yep.
Tell me about how win number 1 felt, but I think I'm a little bit more interested in what the process was the second year as you're trying to defend the ODAC title.
Yeah, it was interesting. I definitely came into a little bit bigger of a role that year. So just being a leader in those opportunities, back-to-back is a slogan that's used quite often in sports, and it's one that people take a lot of pride in. And it's something that we talk about as a program quite frequently, and not even just wins back-to-back, but back-to-back ring the bell. Mm-hmm. It's great to do something once, but it's even better to do it twice, and so on and so forth. And that's what we strive to do. We don't shy away from, we don't push away from any discomfort, any difficult situations. We want to be in those opportunities, and an ODAC championship is an expectation for this program. So back-to-back is great, but we want even more than that.
Yeah, so we'll take it to the 2023 season where ended up falling short on Schellenberger Field against Washington and Lee, but that season was filled with a lot of ups and downs even after the ODAC championship. We'll start with one of the most memorable games that ended up on Lynchburg's side, the Washington and Lee game. You ended up scoring that game winner. Can you walk me through the process when that? Well, we'll start before overtime. You had only had one goal, but you were the guy who had the ball in his stick when you needed a game-tying goal. Why do you think Coach went to you in that situation?
I mean, I put work in difficult times. There's a shooting drill that I do for moments exactly like this where I put a minute on the clock and I have someone toss me balls for a full straight minute. Sounds really simple, sounds really easy, but you get 40 seconds in, your form changes, your shot changes, you get lazy. When you drill that, you understand that in those tired moments, you're going to go back to your fundamentals. And I believe that I have proved myself to do that in those opportunities. We could be tired, I could be breathing heavy. When I get the opportunity, I'm gonna put the ball there. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was 6 seconds left on the clock. Pass went right to my stick. I knew exactly where I wanted to put it. That's all I had to do.
So it's one thing to do that and score the game winner and then you move on, but you were then asked just a few minutes of game time later to do it again. You would imagine that Washington and Lee had your number, and they knew that Lynchburg was going to go to Riley Mitchell out of the timeout. What was that look after already scoring a game-tying goal? Was there any extra challenges, being that they probably were looking at you to be the guy with the ball in his stick?
Yeah, I mean, pressure makes diamonds. I want them to know it's coming to me, and I want to bury it with them knowing that they understand that I want the ball, and I want to put the ball in the back of the net, and I want to do it even more when that's something that they don't want. So I took the opportunity as to just shove it down their throats, right? I mean, it was basically the exact same play. Yeah. It was literally the exact same play. Something we practiced here and there. But, I mean, it comes down to the guys that I play with too, right? So there's only so much that I can do just catching and shooting the ball. But Finn Schmidt, Jake Russ, those two guys in that top center, other wing spot, they're the ones who really – they made the moves. They got me to an open spot. All I had to do was just catch and shoot, and they trust me with that.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go next. Jake Rust assisted on both of those goals against Washington and Lee in overtime. But something that was really unique, at least from my experience with Lynchburg so far, was the success that the freshmen had on that team last year. Spencer Vandenberg, Finn Schmidt, Riley Hastings, we're just naming some offensive players here. What did you have to teach them about winning, being that they hadn't experienced it at the college level yet, and they weren't coming off of 2 straight ODEC championships? They didn't have that experience in the big games like you did.
So it's surprising, especially with that group, Finn Schmidt, Riley Hastings, Spencer Vandenberg. There's not too much that we had to teach. Those kids had a fire in their stomach coming in right away. They got thrown into this spot, and they dove into the pool. We say that a lot, dive into the pool. They put everything that they had into that program, into those games. And one thing that goes completely unnoticed is that group of kids, basically after every single practice, would go down and wake, hit the wall, shoot. I wasn't telling them to do that. They were doing that on their own. I think one of the biggest things as a teaching point was just building off of their confidence. Coming in as a freshman, being thrown into that role, I mean, it's intense, right? Like, there's a lot of eyes on you, a lot of pressure on you. Understanding how to take that pressure, use it to your advantage to push you to want more. I mean, if you told me that we would have 3 freshmen starting on attack and we're going to the Elite 8, I don't know if I would have fully believed you. But those kids are dogs. Right? They are dogs. They work hard. They pass their lift tests with flying colors. Those kids, they were prepared to prove themselves. And I think one of the teaching points that we did touch on was, okay, now that you are in this position, you don't get comfortable. You don't get complacent. You strive to want more. And those kids took that and absolutely ran with it.
So you've hit on a couple different things, talking about the freshmen there, putting in extra work, stuff off the lacrosse field like weightlifting, strength tests, and then also just handling pressure. Throughout the whole season, and we'll even go into the off season, is everything that you're doing focused on one goal, or are you, just trying to become a better lacrosse player overall?
I mean, everything's basically scaffolded towards one goal, right? So That goal is a national championship.
There you go.
But there's a process to it. So there's the goals of, okay, pass your lift test, pass your run test. When you're chunking away at those little bits and little bits, there's always that national championship, that second bell ringing, hanging over our head. And this program lives and dies by what do you do when no one's watching to get you to that point. And this team has a lot of love for those lonely hours. Like this morning, we had a group going out shooting at 8 a.m. I mean, it's our first week of classes. People are a little stressed. People are tired. It's a new semester. But you show up on the lacrosse field, like that's our playground. That's our happy place. We're putting in work, but you're putting in work with the greatest guys in the world on one of the greatest fields in the world in the best environment. Got music going. Not much better than that.
Part of the process, as much as you want to be a team that goes undefeated, is the losing, and of course these ones stick with you. I know I'm not supposed to be as invested in these sports, as I work for Lynchburg, but I remember leaving the field after Salisbury, leaving the field after CNU. These are games that really high level, future national champion teams came in, and just came up just short in overtime against them. Tell me about where those, games are going to affect this season in any way. How do you handle those losses, and what is there any positives you can pull out of those?
Yeah, I mean, losing's not fun.
Yeah,
very much dislike it. Yeah, but I think as someone who's gone through the education system and got undergrad and is in a master's in the education program, it really pushes the growth mindset. If you're constantly winning, you're constantly doing everything right, you're going to get hit with adversity at some point. You're not going to know how to handle it. There's a reason we play the best teams in college lacrosse, and it's not so that we can win and be great or lose and be like, okay, this is what it feels like. It's to understand every feeling, right? So you lose a big game, it's not fun, but there's going to be opportunities to really dive into, okay, what are the little bits that really could have swung something in a different direction. Obviously, I don't want to lose, but it humbles you. Humbles you a little bit. You could have big expectations, a big head on your shoulders, and you get punched in the mouth. You need to be able to know how to get punched in the mouth and stand up and do it right back to someone else. I think this program does a really good job of understanding that, and that's one of our pillars is toughness. Like, you got to be a tough person to lose and stand up, keep your head up, and walk tall. That's extremely important. I think Coach K has done an unbelievable job of preaching that and really putting that into the program, and guys taking that and really honing into that and using it as our advantage. So I think a positive would be building on that growth mindset. Negative, I don't like to lose. I really dislike it.
Well, those regular season losses didn't negatively affect the season too much in the grand scheme of things. Y'all went on to have to play a road game in the NCAA tournament, ended up winning the first two, St. John Fisher and Denison. This was in 2023 last year, and you were once again, a key piece in that St. John Fisher win, specifically being that scored the overtime goal. I don't want to beat a dead horse asking essentially the same question as the Washington and Lee overtime goal, but if you don't score that goal, the season could be over. So how do the trials and tribulations of a loss against CNU and a win against Washington and Lee, how do those all culminate to affect your guys' performance in those high-pressure win-or-go-home games in the postseason?
So we were in that position a lot last year. 4 overtime games, 2 overtime losses, 2 overtime wins. It's a lot. That's a lot. It's a lot to process, a lot to handle, and it's interesting because we practice that quite a lot on Schellenberger and in practices. Okay, you got 30 seconds on the clock, you're down 1, got to score, got to go to overtime. In overtime, this is what are we doing in this situation? People get excited, they get jittery. People want to be the playmaker, which is obvious. Everyone wants, you want to be the man. Everyone on this team wants to be the man. With that being said, though, everyone has a role and everyone understands that role. And it's not all on one guy, especially St. John Fisher. I didn't score the entire game leading up to that point. I have a lot of trust and a lot of faith in my guys to do what they need to do to get us to that point. And if I can make a play, I can make a play. Patience is a virtue. I'm elementary education major, so I had to learn to be patient. And just understand that we have been in this situation. And at that point, St. John Fisher, we had been in that situation twice on the bad end, once on the good end. You're tired, you're exhausted, game's on the line, you got only a couple minutes. What are we going to do to make this go our way? What have we done in the past? Because we had both situations. We had the situation where we didn't make the play and we didn't get the win. We had the situation where we did, and just reminding ourselves, okay, we've been here. We've done this. Nothing says we can't do it again.
So you talk about being the guy. It's a really unique and rare privilege to be the guy on a team. What can you tell people who, non-athletes maybe that don't have a chance to be the guy or the woman on a team to be the one with the ball in their hands at the last second? And what can you also maybe share insight to these younger players that are coming before you or coming after you that, this will be their role? What's it like to be the guy with all the weight on his shoulders?
It's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? I mean, it's incredible at times. I can't say I love being the center of attention. It's a lot to handle at times. It's weird seeing my name in Instagram comments, but but there's times where it's like, all right, I'm here. I'm the one. I need to step up, and it's a pretty good feeling when it goes your way. And a big teaching point is it's not always going to, right? So everyone wants to be the guy, and everyone has potential to be the guy. And that doesn't necessarily mean scoring an overtime game winner. It could be a scout guy going against our best defenseman who just gets worked for a week straight. Your arms are battered, hurting, but then that defenseman goes in that next game and gets a takeaway check and brings the ball down. That could lead to a win.
Yeah.
In my eyes, that scout guy, he was that guy that week. The only reason that we're getting to the places we are because we are only as good as our bottom guys. I think this year especially, like, we are invested and we are deep from bottom to top. And Coach talks about this a lot. There is someone who is in this circle right now who hasn't made a play yet, might not make a play in January, February, but come time April, May, someone's going to step up and make a play that you might not even consider to be a possibility early in the season. There's a lot of joy in being the guy. There's a lot of stress in being the guy, and it's a difficult process learning how to handle it. But embracing it and reminding yourselves that you play this game for a reason. You love this game, regardless if you're the one scoring the goal or if you're the one getting hammered on checks by a starting defenseman. You have your role and you own your role and you be the guy in your role. And if you continuously do that and you constantly get better at it and push to strive bigger, there's nothing that says you can't be the guy.
So is there anyone in your life that has kind of taught you how to take on this responsibility, maybe a former teammate, someone outside of Lynchburg that's taught you how to handle this type of leadership?
So I'll do both. In the lacrosse program in Lynchburg in general, I would say Colin Dean. He was an unbelievable mentor, unbelievable player, and I learned a lot from him. And that was the person that I would go to quite often, especially when I was bumped up to the first line my sophomore year. It was a big step for me, and I worked hard to get there. And I just had to talk to Colin Dean. I was like, look, like, I'm stressing. It's the first time I'm on, like, the starting line. Like, I'm going in right away. Just talk with me about this. Communication is key in every aspect of your life. And I thank Colin Dean time and time again for just sitting me down and having those conversations because Colin Dean was the guy. He was the man. He was in some intense situations. He was a beast of a man playing with broken ankle, Elite Eight. I mean, he did what he needed to do for this program, and that just taught me a lot. And then back home, say my dad and my older brother, right? I mean, my older brother was here at Lynchburg. He was also a first-line midi. He was a great player. But him and I battled at home. He was my best friend, and we don't fight, but we competitively fought. And we pushed each other every single day. And it was always a battle of, like, who's going to be the man at home? Like, which one of us? We got 4 brothers. There's 4 of us. Finn, my brother, who's right under me, the third one in line, that kid wants to be the man always. He wants to be the one that's seen. He wants to be the one doing stuff. Same with my youngest brother. We're all pushing each other, driving for greatness. And I think with 4 boys in the house, you're constantly competing against each other. And I think my parents did a really good job of just allowing us to compete and push each other, but also providing us that outlet and allowing us to understand that these are the most important people in your life. And I think that correlates a lot with the Lynchburg lacrosse team. These are the most important people to me. These are my best friends. These are the guys that I'm with every single day. And I can't thank people like Colin Dean enough, my older brother, my little brothers, my parents, even coaches in high school, just preparing us to be in those situations.
Sweet. Well, you're in the middle of a big season right now, so just competing and watching you out there is really fun. The entire team and then just the entire Lynchburg athletic department so successful. So thanks for coming and talking to us, giving some insight on winning and just what it's like to be a Lynchburg men's lacrosse player.
Absolutely. I appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Go Hornets.
Go Hornets.
Okay, you just heard from Riley Mitchell with the men's lacrosse team, and now we're still on Schellenberger Field, but heading over to the fall semester with our head coach of the field hockey team, Jenni Releford. How are you doing, Jenny?
I'm good, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Good. Thanks for asking. It's very nice. So we had you on for a little short interview, Instagram Reels version. Kyle interviewed you. Let's just assess your performance really quickly on that. How do you think you did on camera with that video interview?
I think it went okay. I mean, on camera, not really my jive, but we did it. We survived, and hopefully the next will be a little better. Yeah,
well, no camera on this one, but that maybe because it was big news, maybe because you're popular, but that got about 10,000 views, so that was it's a good post.
I'm glad I showered that morning.
Okay, well, so let's get into your background a little bit more. When I was thinking about this question or this interview, I was kind of wondering, how do you connect Scotland to Michigan to Lynchburg? So first, we'll start when you were still over in Scotland. When was it the right decision for you to come play field hockey in the United States?
I was really late in the whole process. I was still with the Scotland team and playing a lot of club that I was kind of unsure. And then kind of my senior year, I was kind of like looking at the future. 2012 was in the picture for the Olympics that I was kind of like, don't think that's really going to happen. So kind of the academics and doing the American dream kind of was the goal. So I started pretty late the spring really, and then went in the fall. So super late, but I mean, loved it. Just very, very cold in Michigan.
Your parents now have a house here in Virginia. Had any of your family been to the United States before you moved here for school?
Yeah, so a lot of the time we came over to the States just for vacation when I was younger. Okay. We'd go to, the whole Disney. My dad loves any sports really, so we'd been to a couple American football games. So we'd been over a good bit. That kind of was the teaser for me as well.
And then so if it wasn't going to be maybe the Olympics, but if it wasn't going to be college in the United States, what other options were there for you other than coming to the United States, staying home in Scotland?
A lot of the stuff is just club, so it would just be staying with the same club. We don't really have college athletics at home. It's not as big or kind of the same theme as here. So I'd have been traveling to the school that I kind of looked at home. I'd been traveling at least a good bit for my club team. So it's just seemed that I can always go back to the club. I mean, my first couple of years in the States, I would go back and play indoor at Christmas and stuff like that. And maybe if I get a little fitter and go back at Christmas, I'll join again. But it kind of seemed that it was always going to be there no matter what, so why not try something different?
And then was Michigan State the only option to come play D1, or what were some of your other schools that were interested in you or you were interested in?
I looked at a lot of the Big Ten, looked at Stanford for a bit. Now I'm like, why didn't I choose the Sunshine? But yeah, the coach was also from Scotland, and they also had another international coach who I kind of vibed with really well. So I was super excited when that kind of they came and visited me in Scotland, which a lot of the other schools didn't do. So that kind of seemed like the kind of cherry on top.
Mm-hmm. And then what's the connection to Lynchburg from your playing days in Michigan State?
I mean, honestly, after I finished playing, I was really looking for grad school, and this was one of the options. And there was a couple in New Jersey that I was looking at, but yeah, with Coach Steele's record and just the stuff Lynchburg brought, I really thought this would be the best fit.
Did you know about Enza and her program here outside of just applying, or was that something you found out when you submitted the application?
Yeah, it was something I found out. I mean, at that point in time, I mean, with college, I think I was just... There was other things I was probably looking at.
Yeah. So Enza Steele retires in 2024, excuse me. No, I'm getting so confused. Enza Steele retires as the Lynchburg field hockey head coach in 2023. After 45 years here, she also coached women's lacrosse, and she's a Hall of Famer in the Field Hockey Association here at Lynchburg, just one of the best coaches to ever do it. And she retires as the winningest head coach among any active coach, D1, D2, or D3. What are, this is maybe a grand question, but what are some of the biggest things you picked up from Enza as you're transitioning into a head coaching role, just her winning ways?
Yeah, honestly, I just think it's her mentality of how much she wants to win that really translated to her players on the field. I mean, everything she really encompassed was winning. So, yeah, I mean, this is 9 seasons I've spent with her, so I think I've got a little bit of it. We'll find out soon.
Yeah. So, very successful at your time here at Lynchburg, winning how many ODAC championships?
Ooh, 4? Yeah, I think 4.
4 ODACs, a trip to the Elite Eight this year, but also, or in 2023, but also in 2019. How does the winning here at Lynchburg kind of stack up across your field hockey career?
I think I was fortunate that club teams that I played for at home were very, very good, so I at least got into that winning mentality. Obviously, I started out super, super young, so kind of learning from the older crew. I mean, at home club, there was people on my team that were over 50 years old. So, like, I'm playing with, like, people that have so much experience. So I at least had the winning stuff at home. Michigan State, we had one really successful years. And the others were kind of mediocre, like, nothing special. So kind of coming back to that when I got to Lynchburg was kind of nice. I mean, I think my first season, I want to say we only lost, like, 2 games my first year at Lynchburg. So I was kind of like, dang, like, this is how it's going to go. This is going to be great.
So is there any pressure in a program like Enza's at the time, but now into yours, to keep that winning up? How do you sustain winning when it's been a history of it for so long?
I mean, of course, there's going to be pressure on it, obviously, but one of my strength and conditioning coaches at Michigan State used to always say pressure is a privilege to have. So, like, I'm kind of excited for that, and it seems more of an excitement than I think, like, the pressure on me. But I think I'm just going to continue a lot of the stuff. I've got some new things that I'm excited to implement and use, and then I'll give you a recap in 10 months.
Well, let's dive in a little bit to those new things. Can you give me any insight in what some new things are going to be?
Yeah, so like this spring, we've really kind of changed up our spring training and practices. I mean, we did our first spin class as a team on Friday night, and we have about 7 more of those, some hot yoga sessions. So Coach Noah and I are a little sore. We joined in with the girls. We got a lot of team bonding this spring. So just kind of training up, switching up practice ways, and we're doing like tough, we call them Tough Tuesdays mornings, which are more of kind of scenario plays, kind of thinking like time on the clock kind of things. So yeah, we're excited to see how it works, how the girls like it, and hopefully benefits.
So when I think about winning, of course, score the most goals in the game, you're going to win. But what are some other of the controllables during a game other than offense, defense that you can attribute to winning?
Probably the chaotic moments. Like another thing we're really doing in this spring is we're going to run a lot of drills that we do a lot of the time, but I'm pretty much going to throw in chaotic moments. Like there's always going to be an element of chaos that if we can control our stress better than the other team, we're going to have the right outcome. So I'm going to hopefully prepare the girls that we're in these high stress situations in practice a lot of the time. So it comes to we're 1-0 down in a game with 5 minutes left. We've practiced that a bunch. Like we know how to deal with it. So I'm kind of excited to use the stress as like a good thing so that we don't get that riled up in games.
The 2023 season didn't feature much losing, especially, early on. It went and won the ODAC tournament, but how can maybe dropping a game early, like Lynchburg did in the 2023 season, how can losing end up helping the process along the way the rest of the season?
I think it's always the kind of fun of bouncing back. I mean, most of the time, you're never going to be straight uphill. There's going to be little peaks and valleys that sometimes you never want to say as a coach, but sometimes it's so beneficial losing, just having that feeling so that you know that feeling and you don't want to feel it again.
Lynchburg had really talented players, 2 All-Americans on the team. What's the most talented team you've been on, and has that been the best team, wins and losses? Is that always the equation?
No, I don't think it's always the equation. I think a lot of the time it's the team cohesiveness. I mean, I think about my Big Ten team that we won and went to the Elite Eight. I think in my 4 years, I would not have said that was the most talented team of players, but I mean, we were like best friends. I mean, everybody loved everyone. We did everything together. That kind of our chemistry, I think, is honestly what took us the furthest that year.
So that kind of goes back to my question about some maybe uncontrollables, but off the field, how do you are you fully able to control the team relationships year in and year out? How do you get a control on that to make sure that everyone's gelling?
Yeah, I don't think we can really control it, but we're going to definitely try and help aid it in ways like team building, team bonding. At the end of spring, we're going to compete in a Rugged Maniac, so we're pretty much doing, it's kind of like one of those Tough Mudders, so a 5K with 28 obstacles, so you got to do it as a team. So Coach Noah and I are doing it too, and they can't leave us behind. They got to pick us through the mud. So it's kind of one of those things that if we can get gelling on in the spring, we only have a couple freshmen to add in the fall, that it shouldn't be a huge change, that we're just trucking along.
So let's talk about Noah a little bit. He's been here for, this will be his 4th year.
Yep.
What has Noah brought to the table in his 4 years here at Lynchburg working alongside you?
I think one of his like strongest attributes is that like his love for field hockey is like beyond anyone. Like he eats, sleeps, breathes it. He is involved in so many aspects of field hockey that even when he talks about it, you can tell how much passion he has for the game.
Being involved in club teams, how many of your players are playing on an organized team outside of Lynchburg, and is that a big deal in field hockey?
Most of the time when they go back for summers, they'll probably go back to their club team and kind of train with them. But like, not really. I feel like afterwards, it doesn't really happen in the U.S. It's kind of a international thing where you keep up club, but we're hoping it's going to grow. The Olympics in LA are coming in the future, so we're hoping field hockey is going to grow.
So you're from Scotland. Noah is from the Netherlands. 2 international coaches, I guess, even though you've been here for 10 years now. But your team in 2023 had about 1/3 from outside of the United States. How is reaching out outside the United States helped improve the Lynchburg field hockey team? And do you think that that's a key to success, that you need to go get those internationals?
I mean, I definitely think they help. Our 2 All-Americans were internationals, but I mean, they just bring an element to the team which I think the Americans love. Like, they're also learning their culture, while like vice versa. That it's just like a cool environment to be on. And one of the coolest things is watching them like visit each other or go visit each other's families.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a lot of our girls will stay for Thanksgiving and go like meet their families, but we have a group going to the Netherlands next year, this year, wow, to visit a couple of the girls and their families. So it's kind of cool seeing those relationships grow, and I mean, they're making best friends for life.
Mm-hmm. Recruiting internationally compared to nationally, how much of a difference is there?
I definitely have a couple connections across the pond, so that definitely helps. And same with Noah. He got to go recruiting over there this past winter break, so it definitely helps that I've been through the exact shoes that they've been through, so it's kind of, I think, comforting for a lot of the parents to hear, like, I've been through it, like, it was a long time ago, but I kind of know the ins and outs of that, so it's nice to share those with them and kind of not use it as a stressor, but be like, this is a fun process, like enjoy it.
I can't imagine many of them come visit Lynchburg before committing.
Yeah, no, most of the time not the case.
So what things can you help maybe ease some nerves with people who are going to move across the country to a place they've never been and commit 4 years?
We'll have a lot of Google Meets with them. We've got the online tour. We have the girls will connect with them, kind of reach out from that side. I mean, the girls do a great job with WhatsApp, contacting them, and we can connect them with current incoming class as well. But a lot of the time, it's just kind of connecting with the person. I mean, I think you can tell when there's that spark and it's going to happen. And it's been working with internationals.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us, Coach Jenni. Really looking forward to your first season as the head field hockey coach. We wish you the best.
I appreciate it, Tim. I'm excited, and look forward to the fall. Thank you.
Go Hornets.